Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is a bit of both really. Today we're taking a look at Moon Patrol Redux, which was a 2019 revamp of the 1983 Atari port of Irem's arcade game, which you may have seen recently on the Retro Select series. The original version of Moon Patrol for Atari was by Scott Smith, with graphics by Courtney Granner and music by Robert Vieira. And this new version featured input from the legendary Paul Lay, who we've come across several times on this series before, and TIX, or TIX possibly, on graphics duty. Moon Patrol Redux keeps most of the original gameplay intact, but it features a new title screen, new graphics, a new colour palette, a new font, and additional controller support. I believe you can use a Mega Drive controller with this one if you want to, with access to its additional buttons, which is nice. So I've not tried this version before, but after I played Moon Patrol on Retro Select recently, a few people suggested that I check this one out. So let's go play Moon Patrol Redux. Okay, here we are with Moon Patrol Redux. Not tried this before, but a lot of people have some very nice things to say about it. We're playing the 4th revision of the game here. There have been a few tweaks between the different revisions. And I think the latest one, as I say, supports Sega Mega Drive controllers as well as standard Atari joysticks. But yeah, we'll just go from the beginning. Let's hit start. And off we go. So the big thing that people were excited about with this update is that they'd improved the sprite for the moon buggy. Because as a lot of people pointed out, the sprite for the moon buggy in the original Atari version of Moon Patrol was... well, I never had a real problem with it personally. I mean, it did remind me of an electric drill. But I never thought that was necessarily a bad thing. But this is definitely an improvement. And in fact, if you look closely, they've done the thing from the arcade version where the wheels of the buggy, the tracks of the buggy, whoops, actually follow along with the line of the terrain on the ground as well, which is a really cool little touch. Now this port of Moon Patrol has always been pretty impressive because, I mean, it's pretty authentic to the arcade original in terms of mechanics. Doesn't scroll quite as smoothly, it's not quite as high resolution, but it does have that distinctive parallax... Whoops. It does have that distinctive parallax scrolling that the original was known for. And in fact, the original Moon Patrol in the arcades was something of a pioneer of parallax scrolling in arcade-style games. And for a long time, parallax scrolling was considered to be beyond the Atari 8-bit, so... as quite an early release, this game certainly showed that... yeah, that's nonsense. Okay, so as in the original arcade version of Moon Patrol, you get a bonus according to how much faster than the average time you were. And that's where a significant chunk of your points come from. One thing you will note in this Atari 8-bit version of Moon Patrol is that control over the buggy in terms of speed and horizontal position on the screen is quite a bit more responsive than in the arcade original. So having grown up with the Atari 8-bit version, I actually found it quite an adjustment to play the arcade version and realise quite how sluggish, deliberately sluggish, it's not a criticism, but quite how sluggish the moon buggy is in that original arcade version. Whereas in this, you push left, the moon buggy moves to the left on the screen. There's no sort of feeling of hauling a heavy machine around. And there's definitely pros and cons to both approaches. But I think one thing that's quite noteworthy and admirable about this version of Moon Patrol is that it's very true to the arcade version in terms of level design. So, for example, that bit I messed up there, that's a bit I mess up in the arcade version all the time, and I should have remembered that. The only real difference that you have to deal with if you're using a standard Atari joystick or controller is that you have to push up to jump instead of pressing a button, and that's one reason why the Mega Drive control pad support was added, because having separate buttons for jump and shoot makes this game quite a bit easier. I don't know if easy is quite the right word, but it certainly makes it a little bit more reliable to control, let's put it that way. But yeah, this is a really good port of Moon Patrol. It always was a really good port of Moon Patrol, but what... no! But what Paul Lay and TIX have done here is make it even better. And sort of fixed a few criticisms that people did have of the original Atari release of Moon Patrol. And just make it look a bit nicer. It still looks distinctively Atari. So although it's more authentic to the arcade version, there's certain aspects of its presentation that make it clear it's still an Atari version. Particularly the size of the text on the screen is slightly smaller than the arcade version. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, but it just means it looks a little bit different from the original. And as I say, the handling is slightly different as well. But aside from that, very true, very authentic. And anyone who played this on Atari 8-bit back in the day would have been very happy with it, except perhaps for the player sprite. But like I say, I never really had a problem with the player sprite. I only learned recently that people thought it was worthy of such scorn. In fact, what we might do after we've had a couple of goes here is it might be fun to just fire up the original Moon Patrol and just compare and contrast. Just so you can see the differences that have been made in this newer version. Like I said, the fundamental gameplay and sound and that sort of thing is pretty much untouched from the original Atari release. It just looks a bit nicer. Now, I got quite good at the arcade version recently. I want to see if I can match that performance on this Atari version. Because that should be a good indicator of how accurate this version actually is. Point I, time to be careful. Oh, it's that bit that always gets me. Right, I'm ready for it this time. Let's go again. You'll note we are still missing the sort of base at the beginning of the game. In the arcade original, the moon buggy sort of drives off and onto the surface. But it's there on the title screen. Because the original title screen for the Atari version of Moon Patrol was really boring. It was like a mostly graphics 1 text screen, in which they hadn't even bothered to change the asterisk and hash keys from the Atari 5200 version to say select an option. But I mean, you could figure it out. It wasn't the end of the world, but it was a very boring title screen. And didn't do much to suggest that you were about to have a satisfying arcade style experience. Come here. Now, in the arcade version, if I play absolutely perfectly, I can't get any faster than 59 seconds. Here I've got 58, suggesting this is running slightly faster than the arcade version. Again, not a problem. Just slightly different is all. Lovely big bonus for that. Thank you very much. Onward. Right. Let's do a little bit better this time, shall we? Ooh. Careful now. Oh no! I was clearly over that. Yeah, one thing that the Atari version lacks is the sort of animations when you land just on the lip of a pit and you see the buggy actually slide down into the pit. Which is a bit of a shame. But again, unavoidable. If that wasn't programmed into the game in the first place, it would have been tricky for... it would have been tricky for them to add that into this version, and perhaps there wasn't enough memory available and that sort of thing. Again, not a major issue, but a difference worth noting. Right, up and over. Oh, I can't shoot that quickly enough. Oh no. I'm having more trouble with this bit than I do in the arcade version, which is interesting. Alright, again! Only make the movements we need to. Carefully and accurately shoot the enemies. And the rocks. Concentrating now. Up. For what it's worth, I actually think the explosion when you die in the Atari version is actually better than the arcade version. I like the sound effect and the animation more. I think it's just a little bit more spectacular. And I'm glad that they've kept that. Is the explosion animation in this version, in this Redux version, is the same as the original arcade version. Not the original arcade version, the original Atari version. Which is nice. Because I'm sure it was tempting to replace it with the arcade version, but no. No, they've kept some quintessentially Atari aspects of this. Come here. Oh no, that's good too. Hup! Hup! Alright, double one coming up. Shoot the double one, shoot that one, shoot the little one over the thing. Okay. All good so far. No! Watch the road. Keep your eyes on the road, not the sky. There's these little spinny bastards who can blow holes in the road. Right, carefully. This is the bit that kills me, always. Like that. The trick in the arcade version is not to go too fast over the... There we go, that's it. It's not to go too fast when you start your jump over that pit. Because if you're going too fast, you don't have time to land and slow down before you face that next double rock. Okay, but we've made it. So the next stage should be the Minefield. Which is pretty easy to get through if you don't try and race through it. Again, this just has a very slightly different feel to the arcade version in terms of speed and handling. Not in a negative way, it's just noticeably slightly different. Like, I think the pairs of mines like that are slightly more spread out than they are on the arcade original. But at the same time, the ones that are closer together are not quite as tightly arranged as in the arcade version, so it probably balances out. Again, we'll see if my finishing time reflects my best performance in the arcade version. Because once you're through that initial minefield, the rest of this stage is pretty easy. There we go. So I should have a nice big bonus here. Because the average time here is 100 instead of 80. Yes, look at that. Give me all of the points. Lovely. Right, onward. Now this whole stage, if I remember rightly, isn't horrendously difficult either. You have the uphill bit here. You'll notice that it's not a smooth transition to the uphill like it is in the arcade original, which is a bit of a shame. But it's only a momentary flick screen affair. And at least it's there. It would have been easy for them to leave that... Oh, bollocks. It would have been easy for them to leave that out completely. But nope, they put that in. That was in the original version. That is not something that Paul Lay and friends added for this Redux version. There we are. No? Fine. Oh, interesting. It doesn't have the downhill bit. That's strange. Yeah, is normally S to T on the arcade original is downhill. From that hill you were on top of. Alright, let's see if we can make it to the end of the beginner stage. Oh, not like that. I'm not going to do that. Carefully. There's no rush. No rush. Especially not with some of the nonsense that comes up in this stage. Oh no! Ooh. Anyway, I think you get the idea. you get the idea. And if you want to see my real Moon Patrol skills, go and watch the Retro Select episode of me playing the arcade version. Because obviously, I'm better at the arcade version, I guess. Yeah, what we will do is we'll take a quick look at the original Atari version, just so you can get an idea of how this version compares to it. I'll just play it around once, so we won't spend too long on it. But yeah, it will give you an idea of how the two versions compare. So if you bear with me, I will be right back. Okay, here we are with the original Moon Patrol. And actually, they did correct select an option. This must be a slightly different revision of the game, because I've certainly played a version where it still says start and hash instead of select an option. But yeah, maybe there were different things. But yeah, you can see how boring that title screen is compared to the new one that they did for Moon Patrol Redux. So let's play. So there is the oft mocked sprite. And you can see the difference in the colour palette and the graphics. So it still runs fine. The graphics have a slightly lower resolution look to them. The font hasn't been redefined. Which is not at all uncommon in Atari games. A lot of people didn't bother to redefine the system font. Whoops. Now, the whole thing is also running very slightly slower than Redux as well. You can probably hear that most clearly in the music. Oh dear, why isn't my fire button working? The curse of wireless controllers. I said we'll have just one go at this, but not making it to point C is not acceptable, so we're going to have another go at this. Right, this time's the one. Watch this. But yeah, look at that buggy sprite. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, yes, it's big and chunky, and as I say, it does remind me of an electric drill for some reason. But I don't think it's awful. I think maybe one issue that people had with this version is that all of the sprites are a little bit bigger. And so that might not feel quite as authentic to the arcade original, because you're actually more at risk of crashing if your sprites are bigger. But it also makes the enemies easier to hit. Like, look at those flying saucers, they're massive compared to the ones we've just seen. And there you see, on the Redux version I could have probably avoided that missile with that braking that I did there, but here it just clipped the end of my electric drill nose and it took me out. Which is most unfortunate, I'm sure you'll agree. Yeah, you can really hear that music running slightly slower in this version. Don't know if that's a PAL or NTSC difference. Offhand. May well be something as simple as that. But I mean, I'm running this on the same settings, so I don't know. It would stand to reason that a new version of it would be a bit more optimised and able to run a bit more quickly. Again, I could have probably avoided that on the Redux version. Ooh. Double one. Double one. Why aren't you firing? Not just my controller in this one. Sometimes the firing just isn't as responsive. Particularly with the forward firing cannon. Unfortunate. One last go. One last go, because why not? So yeah, like I say, anyone who picked up this original Atari version back in the day would have been very happy with the accurate conversion, or reasonably accurate conversion of Moon Patrol to the Atari 8-bit computer. But yeah, it's hard to deny that Redux is a significant improvement in several different ways. So good job, Paul Lay, once again, I say. And TIX or TIX, or however you prefer to be referred to, for your excellent job on the new graphics as well. Very nice indeed. I don't know if you can see it on here, but one thing I'm finding slightly noticeable on this as well is that there's an obvious seam where the ground terrain kind of loops. Whoops! There's like a bit where you can see the end of the ground terrain pattern and the start of a new loop of it. Only happens every so often, but like there's a sharp vertical edge where that happens that I didn't notice in Redux. Not amazing performance, but, well, as I say, I'm better at the arcade version. The arcade version is the real Moon Patrol. Resent me with this cheap knockoff. Oh yeah, I've mentioned a few times on a few games recently that quite a few retro classics are supposedly getting updated for the upcoming Intellivision Amico console, if that ever actually happens. And Moon Patrol is one of those games. They actually put out a demo of what the Amico version of Moon Patrol is going to look like for mobile phones a while back. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I'm kind of inclined to say that they updated the look a bit too much, if anything. Because what they've done is, rather than doing a sort of pixel art remake, rather than doing a sort of pixel art 2D remake, they put it into 3D. Except because it's running on sort of running on mobile phone tech and engines, it's got a sort of mid-2000s 3D look to it, which I'm not sure is amazing. I mean, it played okay. It played all right with the touchscreen even, which is sort of testament to how good Moon Patrol's gameplay in general is. But anyway, that is the story for another day. And indeed, may not be a story at all, depending on whether or not the Amico ever makes it to market, which we still have to see about that. Anyway, that is Moon Patrol Redux and the original Moon Patrol for Atari 8-bit computers. We'll leave that there for today. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.